Welcome, everyone. My name is Seth Green, and on an afternoon like this one, where we're talking about issues related to giving and virtual volunteering, I'm especially proud to say that I'm the founding director of the Baumhart Center at Loyola University Chicago, and we are thrilled to be partnering with Benevity to go deeper into how companies are meeting the COVID-19 moment. I want to start by saying that this is a moment that we are deeply struck by as a center. We hope that all of you are safe and healthy, and we appreciate that many of you are on the absolute front lines of this work in nonprofit efforts to help people get jobs and maintain livelihoods amidst this moment, in healthcare efforts to heal, and in business efforts to try to support your teams and your communities in this uncertain time. And so I want to start with just our deepest gratitude to all of you for doing this work. We are also struck by this moment because as a center, it really raises issues that we know have been here for centuries, and that we hope when this fast crisis is over, we can return and have even greater urgency around the slow crisis. In Chicago, where our university is headquartered, we are particularly saddened that so far in the city, there is a 6-to-1 ratio of Blacks being killed by COVID-19 compared to whites. And that reflects the injustice and inequities that we work on every day as a center, but it also shows how far we are from realizing equity and caring fully about all of those lives when we are not in this crisis mode. And so for us, we are really grateful to all of you for your leadership in this moment. And we are also feeling even greater urgency in the mission that we share together. I want to just start by sharing our agenda, and I'll share a tiny bit about the Baumhart Center, and then I'm going to turn it over to our partner, Catherine Pisco, who is the leader of Goodness Solutions, a title I love at Benevity, and she's going to be able to provide a real landscape on what's happening in the field at this moment. And then we're going to dive deep into 3 case studies, 3 companies that have been purposive from before this moment, but who are especially showing their purpose now in this moment: Levi's, Zurich, and John Deere. And then we're going to come to your questions. So let me just start briefly by sharing what our center is up to. We are constantly trying to look as a center at how we can integrate business strategy and social purpose to meet social and environmental needs. And for those of you who are not familiar with the center or Loyola, I just want to say that this has been our mission for our 150-year history. One of the places that we're really proud to be a leader is in what we call social purpose and business education. The Financial Times has a survey that they look at over 250 business schools around the world, and we were one of the top 4 in that survey last year, along with one other school in the US and 2 in Europe. And it's truly because we believe that the purpose of business should be to better lives, and everything that we teach and all the tools that we use at the center are around how to marry profit and purpose, and ultimately use business tools in pursuit of higher objectives like closing the racial and ethnic wealth gap and building a more sustainable climate. Let me also just share that one of the core strategies of our center is to prepare leaders to drive impact. And we have many of these tactically, one of which is a cohort that is going through the MBA exclusively with this mindset of how do I build a brand that defies stereotypes rather than reinforces it? How do I drive sustainability into the supply chain? A final thing I just want to share about our center is that we are really working hard to raise the standards for business. We have an Innovator Award that we give to businesses that meet the moment and that are constantly committed to their people, to their communities, and to the environment. And you can see in front of you the 3 companies that received that award in 2020. With that, I want to turn it over to Catherine, who's going to share a high-level strategy and landscape update from Benevity. And I just want to, in turning it over to Catherine, share how truly grateful we are for the partnership with Benevity. We think of their work as a B Corp, as a model for what business should be. So Catherine, let me turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Seth. And I really appreciate your thoughtful remarks at the beginning. I've been a fan of you and the center for quite some time, and I'm really honored to participate today. So appreciate you bringing these leaders together to meet in this moment. With all the challenges and uncertainty we've all been facing, I've been feeling incredibly fortunate, as many of you probably have as well, to work in a space that we are in, and especially for an organization like Benevity, whose goal is literally to support companies and helping their people show up as the best version of themselves every day. As some of you may know, Benevity is a B Corporation, and our corporate purpose is to act as a catalyst to infuse a culture of goodness into the world. We do this through technology and are now the leading provider of workplace giving, volunteering, and grant-making software. And because of the fact that some of the world's most iconic brands are in our client community, we're really well positioned to kind of understand what purpose-led companies are doing to positively influence the curve of COVID-19. So today it's my honor to share some of what we've been up to and some of our almost 700 clients are doing to address COVID, but also to discuss some of the purpose trends that we've seen arise since the crisis began. Seth, if you want to move to the next slide, be great. I spent the last few days combing through internal data, rereading articles, listening to webinars, and compiling stories about what companies all over the world and within the Benevity community are doing to address COVID. Distilled it down into 5 different trends that I'm excited to share with you today. But there are so many different angles that one can look at this massive crisis at. But I will be speaking through the lens today of employee engagement, giving, and volunteering. First, though, I thought I'd start by outlining a few ways that we are seeing employees' mindsets and expectations shift since COVID. Some of you may have seen that Edelman released a COVID-19 special report in March, where they conducted a survey in 10 countries, and it really confirms the critical role that businesses play as a source of reliable and timely information. Employees are now viewing their employers as the most credible source of communications around COVID-19. And there's now even a higher expectation that businesses act, with 78% of respondents expecting business to protect both employees and the local community, and almost 80% expecting business to adapt its operations and share information regularly. So the stakes are even higher for all of us. But I share this data with you because I think it really underscores how important the work you all are doing every day is. It also made me think about, just at the end of the day, our companies are really just made up of people, of individual humans. And so it's really important to remember that even in these hectic and uncertain times. Okay, now on to some of the key trends we've been seeing in giving, volunteering, and employee engagement since the COVID-19 shift. The first you can already see. Seth, if you don't mind clicking once just to populate the rest would be great. We're really seeing one of the most progressive trends that I can note is companies empowering employees to not only support in a transactional way through giving and volunteering, but a transformational way through small pro-social actions. Benevity's platform, for instance, has something called missions to do this, but we're seeing a lot of other ways to approach it as well. And it's really proved to be inclusive, because implementing these small actions can be done even if a company doesn't have a large budget, and employees can participate, even those employees who may be furloughed or dealing with really challenging new realities. Adobe is one company in particular that's doing this well. They launched a Create Change at Home campaign where they're using missions to provide small personal actions during this time that employees can do. So everything from health-related activities that can keep your family safe to suggesting how to adjust to all of our new kind of work from home realities. In the spirit of redefining what purpose is, we've also seen companies going above and beyond to help employees adjust to new realities by encouraging employees to take small actions and focus on mental health or supporting families work while they have children at home. We saw SAP, who has a few offices all over the globe, and they're actually a couple weeks ahead of us with their COVID response, because they do have offices including in Spain and Italy. And they've been seeing employees actually donate their time to host online sessions where they can do things like teach guitar or even story time to the children that are home to give mom and dad a break. Seth, if you wouldn't mind moving to the next slide. The next trend that stands out is how companies are amplifying their impact with incentivized matching campaigns, seeding campaigns, and dollars for doers. So we've seen 58% of the Benevity clients who have shared their COVID response with us that are doing a special or increased matching incentive. I thought this was really interesting because before COVID, we were actually seeing an industry-wide decrease in matching gifts overall, except for disaster giving and dollars for doers. But it seems that COVID has really kind of jump-started giving. Apple and Nike, for instance, are doing 2-for-1 matches for all causes. We're really seeing this across the board. Some companies are even doing more aggressive matching, like a 4-to-1, and then others are simply just starting to match where maybe they didn't before. Another way of looking at this is we're seeing companies repurpose existing crisis grants or launching external matching campaigns and inviting their external stakeholders to contribute in order to amplify the grant. We actually did this at Benevity through what we call our community impact portal. It's an external facing microsite to really tap into the power of collective action. So we ran a $300,000 match and invited our friends, families, stakeholders, and employees to donate. And we were floored to see that the goal was actually reached in about 2 hours. And to date, the campaign has driven over $2 million to 774 nonprofits. And this was possible because we, instead of just using a $300,000 grant, we were able to amplify our impact and invite stakeholders to join us. Next slide, please. Another thing we're often seeing is that companies are removing restrictions on grants and looking at different giving models. So one example that we're seeing of this is companies removing barriers and thresholds in certain programs to be more inclusive and accessible. Adobe is doing this in their Dollars for Doer program. They used to give their employees $250 for every 10 hours volunteered. But when they started to go to remote workspace, they wanted to allow for immediate impact and kind of remove that 10-hour threshold and started doing an hourly rate of $25 per hour. And we're really seeing this trend in grants. So 20% of Benevity clients who have shared their COVID strategy with us are responding that through a corporate donation or by actually making changes and adjustments to their grant program. We see this most often by folks removing their granting restrictions, by removing large portion of their questions on the grant application forms. For an example, questions and messaging around how the funding must be used. And companies are really using this as a great way to be a true partner with the nonprofits they work with. They have a very authentic conversation with nonprofit partners to get their perspective on what is needed most. And then the funding those areas without restrictions. BlackRock, who has actually committed $50 million to relief efforts, has allocated the first $18 million of funding to meet the needs of the most vulnerable people. They were hearing from their food bank partners that they are already struggling with declining numbers and retail donations. And so, which has really compelled them in real time to redesign their operating model. So BlackRock has committed to bridge the gap. Next slide, please. We've seen a shift from face-to-face to virtual volunteering, which probably makes sense to most of us. It's become a necessity as we can no longer be in groups or have in-person interactions with large groups. Yet we all feel compelled to do something still, and we know how important volunteering is for employees to feel engaged and connected. While we have seen quite a few new ideas and ways to engage in virtual volunteering, we've also seen great work being done between companies and their existing nonprofit partners to simply shift the work being done. So companies are thinking about how they can use existing skills possessed by their employees to offer pro bono services to the nonprofits they already work with. I thought Liberty Mutual has a really great virtual volunteer strategy. They call upon their volunteer champions that already exist within the company to continue to reach out to their local communities. So the champions just pick up the phone and make calls and reach out to seniors or other people in their community or family that might be isolated. And I actually just signed up for an opportunity at Benevity called Mapping for COVID-19 Relief, where I'll be mapping remote communities in Peru so that the government can provide them with assistance. And honestly, I've seen dozens of cool opportunities like this. As a side note, always happy to share more if it'd be of use. So feel free to connect with me after. Happy to share. Seth, if you wouldn't mind moving to the next. The last trend I just wanted to briefly touch on is what we are seeing, that it's so important for companies to not only maintain strong communications, but also role flexibility. So in this new reality, we're all taking on new roles. I, for one, never thought I'd be a teacher, business professional, and mom at the exact same time in a small Chicago city apartment. Similarly, we were seeing teams working cross-functionally every day, wearing many hats and being flexible to make sure that acts are coordinated and communicated. This crisis is just too big and expansive to be solved by one department in an organization, so everyone's stepping up. On a recent webinar I listened to by FSG, the Vice President of Philanthropy of Walmart mentioned that this was key to their strategy. She meets with a cross-functional team of leaders every day to weigh in on decisions and discuss approaches so that everyone's voice is at the table. And on a more granular level, we're seeing companies empower their employees to step up in whatever way is needed, even when it falls outside of their typical role. A great example of this is General Mills. They have offered healthy corporate office employees the opportunity to provide temporary help in manufacturing facilities and support them in a variety of ways, which I just thought was amazing. Seth, if you don't mind clicking to the last slide. Wanted to provide some resources, happy to share more, but you know, at the end of the day, this is all extremely challenging. While these trends have initially emerged, we know that the situation will continue to evolve, and so must our strategies. So I'm really eager to hear from all three of the leaders that will be contributing today. And so I'll end here, turn it over to the folks doing the incredible work to share their journey. Thank you again, Seth, for the opportunity to share these ideas with the group.
Well, thank you, Catherine. That is a really both I'm having trouble with my voice, but a very sophisticated, I'll say, overview. It was really helpful to get a sense of what these trends are and how they are impacting the field. And we're now going to turn and we are going to look at 3 case studies in business that really represent what's happening. And we were so pleased to have 3 very different businesses that are in very different moments because of what they do and what the expectations are on them at this moment. So let me turn it over to you, Alexis. As you can see on your screen, Alexis Bechtold is the Senior Manager of Community Affairs and Social Impact at Levi Strauss Company. And so I'm going to let her share how they are approaching these issues at Levi's. Alexis?
Thanks, Seth and Catherine. And just a quick note to what you said earlier, Seth, about us being on the front lines. I really don't feel like I'm on the front lines of this work. I think just huge kudos to all the nonprofits and healthcare workers who are out there every day risking their lives and helping impacted communities. But I think all of us on this call get to do this from the comfort of our homes, albeit whether or not you have a rambunctious 8-month-old that you're staring at during conference calls all the time. So just honored to be here and really looking forward to this conversation today. So we like to start with this slide, which we think is very cute and clever. At Levi Strauss Company, we say that giving back is in our genes. Levi Strauss, the man himself, opened up a dry goods business back in 1853, and from that moment on, really established a values-led approach to growing his company responsibly that has carried through to today. In the late 1800s, he donated some of his very first profits to an organization in San Francisco that we still continue to support to this day. And today, in 2020, we generously give back to more than 100 countries around the world where we have a business presence. And when you look back at our history, we've really led the way with our values, and it's helped us to really attract and retain global talent, and ultimately has led our employees to really encourage us and empower us to take courageous positions. So we integrated our factories in the US long before it was required by law. In the 80s, our former CEO stood downstairs at our headquarters in San Francisco and handed out educational information and resources on HIV and AIDS, and that was long before the name or the disease had a name and was formerly just known as the gay disease. We created the Red Tab Foundation in 1981, which was started by an employee, and it was the very first and continues to be employee assistance fund in our industry. And we were the first Fortune 500 company to offer domestic partner benefits in the 90s. And so we respond to the issues and events of the day every single year and every moment when it makes sense. So some recent highlights: in 2017, in response to the rapidly changing political landscape, the Levi Strauss Foundation ramped up support for organizations really protecting highly vulnerable communities, including immigrants, refugees, transgender community. And in 2018, we took a really bold stand and established what we call the Safer Tomorrow Fund, which is committing $1 million in philanthropic contributions to youth movements that are making progress on common sense gun laws. In that same year, we started a campaign on voter engagement that was once again really driven by the enthusiasm and ask of our employees for how they could really stay engaged in their communities. And if you can go to the next slide, Seth. So our employees really are at the root of everything we do. They raise their hands and push us to stand up for the issues of our time. And they're truly ambassadors for our values and our overall approach to doing good. We have days of service, 5 hours a month of paid volunteer time a month to volunteer, matching gift programs, and more. And they go out and they lend their voices and they advocate for the issues that they care about. If you can go to the next slide. And so all of this really starts with our people. So there's 2 programs we have in our supply chain to support all of our workers around the world. We have a program called Worker Wellbeing, where we go in and we survey our workers to listen to their needs and work with established nonprofits on the ground in partnership with our vendors and factories to create or really kind of empower these nonprofits to go into the factories and work directly with the workers. So it's not Levi's is giving money and saying what needs to happen. It's really at the grassroots level. And then the Red Tab Foundation is a way to support our employees in retail, distribution, and corporate offices around the world. It's our employee assistance fund, and it's largely funded by our own employees and retirees. And the Red Tab Foundation serves as a resource for employees facing unexpected financial emergencies. And then, as I said earlier, it's really the first of our kind. So if you can go to the next slide. So this all leads to our response to this global pandemic. COVID-19, as we all know, is truly global in scale, impacting our business, our employees, and nearly every community we touch. I think all of us on this phone feel this, that this is a moment in time. It's unprecedented, and everyone around the world is united around the safety and wellness of our healthcare workers and staying home. As a values-driven company, we wanted to ensure a holistic and thoughtful approach that was really authentic to our philanthropic strategy and supported the communities most in need. So we got together. We wanted to make sure this wasn't reactive, that we were true to Levi Strauss Co and what we stand for, and we put together guiding principles that ultimately put our employees at the center, making sure that we first have in place the policies and programs to support their economic and social well-being. And we wanted to make sure that it ensured support that really considered the immediate needs, the near and long-term needs of our employees, community partners, and supply chain workers, because we know that over the next weeks and months and years, the economic impacts on our communities are going to be even greater than they are today, and we're already seeing the effects of that. And then we wanted to focus on geographies with the greatest concentration of employees and number of supply chain workers, because we know we can't boil the ocean, and we know we don't have unlimited funds. And then we really wanted to make sure that we support existing community partners that serve the marginalized and underserved populations that are being directly impacted by the crisis, and ensure that our support of these longstanding partners doesn't diminish in light of the crisis. So a lot of the funding that we're doing is actually doubling down on current partners who may not be on the front lines, but they're working with impacted communities, and they're having to shift their strategies. And so it's having honest conversations with them and being supportive of their shifting needs. So our approach is really multi-layered. We start with employees, and that's through the Red Tab Foundation. So first and foremost, we're committed to helping our own people through this crisis. Red Tab Foundation has, over the last week, just fielded a 350% increase in requests for assistance from employees around the world. And most assistance to date is loss of income from someone in their family member who may have lost a job, because we are still paying our employees even though our retail stores are closed right now. And their leadership in this space is so highly thought of that they have become a go-to resources for other companies in the industry who are looking advice on how to set up a fund. And I will do a plug that they are going to be hosting a webinar next week on this very topic. So if there's any companies interested, we can share that out after. And then Levi Strauss Foundation. The goal here is really to protect vulnerable communities that we've long cared about, and then confront the marginalization and social ills exacerbated by COVID-19, including xenophobia, racism, gender-based violence, et cetera. And that's through support for organizations like Chinese for Affirmative Action, which is fighting back against the coronavirus-related racism directed toward Asian Americans. And then I wanted to, as we're on the call with Benevity, I think, you know, as I've said multiple times already through this quick talk, our employees are so eager to do more. So we started a 3-to-1 giving campaign where we had started with a slate of organizations that we knew in San Francisco and then national organizations that we've worked with. And then we have been having continued conversations with what we call our community ambassadors around the world, for them to guide us on who the local organizations on the ground are that are helping in response. And then we have virtual volunteering challenges. And one of those is encouraging our employees, most of whom are very familiar with the sewing machine, to make face coverings for communities that may need them. And for every mask that is created, we will make a donation to Direct Relief, which is providing PPE to healthcare workers, so surgical masks and N95, which we don't have in our right now. And I think, you know, just from a high level top line, I think it's really important that we're seen as a go-to place to inform employees on where to give, how to give, and to really educate them and empower them to do good. So I will stop there.
Thank you so much, Alexis. And we're going to turn now to a very different case study from a business perspective. But what I think you're going to see is that even though the products are different across these companies, the similarity will be this simultaneous solve that, you know, the best companies are constantly looking for, what do we already do and how do these competencies we have help to meet this moment? And when you think about, you know, Levi's figuring out how they make face masks and how they leverage their deep relationships with their employees to support them in this time, I think you'll see a lot of thematic similarities to the next two case studies, even if the solves themselves look very different. So with that, I want to turn it over to Andrea Davis, who is going to talk to us about how this takes place at Zurich, North America. Andrea?
All right, thank you, Seth, and good afternoon, everyone. So just to jump in here, if we can go, to that slide. So for those who aren't familiar with Zurich, we are a global insurer. We have about 55,000 employees around the world. Here in North America, we are a leading commercial property casualty insurance provider. And we have about 9,000 employees between the US and Canada. So, you know, as you can see here on the slide, we've outlined our purpose and our values. And I think, you know, our purpose and values are really the foundation of what we do. And those really set the stage for how we deliver for our customers, our people, and our communities, and are especially important, you know, during challenging times like the ones we're in now. We can go to the next one. So just want to make a quick mention of a few things we're doing, you know, for our customers and our people, and then I'll dive into our community response here. But, you know, we have worked really hard to ensure that we're providing seamless, undisrupted, high quality service to our customers. We can't be going out and visiting with them and meeting them so much. You know, right now we're doing that virtually, but we want to make sure that we're still seen as a thought leader, as a resource for them. So we're doing a lot on the back end, answering claims 24/7, you know, checking in to see what else they may need right now. And we've launched a COVID resource page on our website so that they can get up-to-date information and resources. They can join podcasts. So really trying to put the information out there for our customers and the broader community. Go on to the next one. So then when it comes to our people, we certainly, want to make sure we're supporting our employees. I think they're really at the heart of what we do. So we pulled together very quickly as the coronavirus situation escalated, and wanted to just ensure that all of our people felt, secure and safe and had the resources that they need during this time. So providing quick information on our benefits programs, providing the technology training and support they need to be able to work remotely, focusing heavily on employee well-being. This is really important to us. So offering tips for employees who are, now working at home, how they can stay connected, ways to stay mentally and physically healthy during this time as well. So we're really doing a lot of initiatives, just focusing internally on our people and their health and well-being as well. One thing I want to mention here is we are exploring how we might launch an employee resource fund. And this would allow employees to donate through our Benevity platform, but then they would also have the opportunity to request funds if they're impacted by this pandemic, but then also moving forward, a natural disaster or another hardship. And we would obviously see this with company funds as well. But we think this would be, and we're in the exploration stage of this, but we think this could be another really great way that we can help support our employees during this time and give them also the opportunity to support each other. So if we go to the next one. So our communities. Globally, our mission is to empower vulnerable people within our communities to better protect themselves from risk and to adapt and thrive in a rapidly changing world. So that's, the kind of the mission that we've adopted from our global foundation and, put it to work here locally. In North America, we have a very long-standing tradition of giving back. It is truly ingrained in our culture. Even when we do our, annual employee surveys, we often hear comments from our colleagues that community investment and the opportunity to give back through Zurich is one of the really big pride points they have about working for our company. So we want to encourage that throughout the year. We have several programs that we do. We have our Zurich Community Week, where we encourage every employee to go out and volunteer. We observe the National Day of Service. We do a lot of volunteer projects on that day. We have a North America food drive. So a lot of different programs and initiatives and opportunities for people to get involved. And then the other thing we see is a lot of these employee-led projects as well. So people are volunteering, in their communities, at their local food pantries, or doing a Habitat for Humanity build. So we see that just happening organically as well. And we want to continue to support that. So as we are in a kind of uncharted territory here with the COVID pandemic, we've been taking a look at how we can best support our communities during this time. And our global foundation is working with our offices and colleagues around the world. They're supporting local initiatives that'll have the greatest impact on COVID relief efforts. So in North America, I would just say our community response is in development. We've launched several things internally, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, but we are continuing to build out a broader approach in collaboration with our global foundation as well. And we're quickly formulating our plan so that we can continue to support the key nonprofits that we work with, and then also address areas of high need right now. So we know things like food security, first responders, other basic needs like shelter. Those are really, really critical right now. So in that proposal we're working with our global foundation, we're really building out some pieces where we can support those areas of high need. And then we're also looking at how we can support relief efforts from an industry perspective. So working through funds such as the Insurance Industry Charitable Foundation's relief efforts, so that we're at the table with those who in other scenarios may be competitors, but in this kind of situation, we're all banding together and trying to make a collective impact across our industry. So if we can go to the next one. So I wanted to highlight a few of the things that we're doing, particularly with our Benevity platform, which we call Zurich Cares. So like you've already been hearing from others on the call, virtual volunteering has really getting very popular right now. So we've always, well, I shouldn't say always, I would say in the last year, 1 to 2 years, we had a broader focus on virtual volunteering because we know that about a quarter of our workforce works remotely full time. So that's something that we've been building out, over time. And I think that's really helped us set the stage for offering ongoing opportunities during a time like this when employees are working remote and, not able to get out and do things in person or in groups like they would normally be used to doing. So we have a whole host of virtual volunteer opportunities listed out on our Zurich Cares site that folks can sign up for. We also know that many employees have kids at home right now. So virtual volunteering is a great opportunity for families to give back while they're staying safe at home. Additionally, through our platform, and this is year-round, there's a variety of charities that employees can donate to, and we automatically match those donations on a one-to-one basis. So we are looking at, during this particular period in time, there may be some campaigns that we do, over the next few weeks or months that may increase that match to 2-to-1 or something like that. So we're exploring some of those additional matching initiatives as well. One piece that we've really been focused on is carving out giving opportunities for a network of food banks that our employees already support across our footprint. So back to the point of providing this additional support to these key partners that we're already working with, and then, partnering that with this critical need of food security, we really wanted to try to amp up the support of this network of local food banks that we know our employees already volunteer for and donate to. So we've created a network of those organizations that employees can give back to and are looking at some additional funding for those food pantries as well. And then just the last couple points here. So in the US, we have a grants program that benefits about 55 to 60 organizations annually. So we also administer that through the Benevity platform. And we've made a decision this year. We are just about to pay out our grants during this time period anyway. And we made the decision, which I think Catherine had mentioned earlier, many companies are doing, to lift the restrictions on those grant payments. So really freeing up those funds for, initiatives and operational costs that we may not typically support through our grants program, but we know are probably the highest need areas for those nonprofit partners right now. And then we'll continue to evolve our plan, looking at, are there additional fundraising campaigns or other ways that we can continue to engage our employees. We did do a global bingo game with our colleagues across the world recently. It was really fun. And the winners got a small donation to give to a charity of their choice. So just thinking about those engagement opportunities and how we can pair up the charitable giving aspect of that to, again, help support our employees and our communities throughout this time. I think go to the next slide. I think that was, that's really all I had today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Andrea. And we're now going to move on to our final case study. And for those who have been chatting, we have been receiving your questions and we'll introduce those after this case study is complete. But first, Kim, we want to hear about how you've approached this at John Deere and how you are seeing the same thematic ideas play out in your context.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, Seth, thank you so much to you and the center and Catherine from Benevity and the co-presenters to be discussing such an important topic right now. And I'd be remiss not to thank all of you on the phone as well as business leaders and nonprofit leaders. And I'm sure many of you, as us, also have people that you care about, friends and family on the front line with COVID. So thank you and appreciate everyone for the work that's happening here. This is unprecedented times for sure, but something that we feel very positively that we're going to be able to get through by doing these types of things together. And I think it's interesting, as we just heard, like this isn't a time to be competitive. And I think part of my message that you'll hear today, we'll get to that just a little bit. This is a time where we can really step up and help everyone in the world. So just to talk a little bit about what John Deere is doing, Our story isn't going to be too dramatically different than what you've just heard from others, from Levi's and Zurich as well. But to give you a little bit of background, John Deere, obviously a large equipment manufacturer, ag and turf equipment, construction equipment, heavy technology in terms of precision agriculture and machine technology. And so we have a lot of things, as you wouldn't be surprised, in terms of what our foundation and our company strategies are. So John Deere and our John Deere Foundation are catalysts for positive global changes. So we're focusing our energy, our intellect, our resources within the company on solving world hunger. We do that mostly through small shareholder farmers in India and Asia, empowering all youth through education and inspiring mostly underserved youth with opportunities to pursue education, whatever that looks like for them, whether it's a certificate, a 4-year degree, but just really getting them to a more empowered state, and then developing our home communities. So right now, what that looks like and what it usually looks like is the same, which is great, because then we aren't really focusing on completely different strategies, but ensuring that those in need in our community you know, have this resiliency built up normally, but then how can we make sure, as everyone else has talked about, focusing on those who are most at need at this time, and even if it means just access to basic human needs and services. So we do this by investing purposefully and focusing our philanthropic efforts and volunteerism efforts to achieve just basically a higher standard and sustainable living standard for people around the world. So if you want to go to my next slide, here you're going to see something. I wanted to talk a little bit first about John Deere's core values, and those are integrity, quality, commitment, and innovation. And we have established an enduring foundation for this, for our company's success by using those 4 core values. I have an example of a recent social media post that we see here, and I think it really exemplifies and embodies the values in action, and how we can look at, you know, these are why you have core values, because they get to apply even in your toughest times, right? So they aren't things that we just stick in our annual report, but they really are things that are the essence of who you are and embody your company and your culture. And so John Deere is fortunate enough to have some really great talented engineering in our company, and recently we had some of our engineers design clips for standard PPE to be able to attach face shields. So normally in our factories, our employees would be wearing those supportive bump caps with like a baseball cap kind of thing over the protective white shell that you would see. But to take one step further, we're now having our employees wear face shields. And then some of our engineers then designed and are 3D printing the little clips that would hold then the face shield on to current PPE. And they also have shared that design publicly for the world to use. It's something that John Deere, you know, we could have patented or did something, but we don't want to, right? We want to be able to share that for the greater good. And I think that that really starts to say, you know, what type of core values does your company have and how do they exhibit during that time? So if you want to go to the next slide, Saf. First, I would love to say thanks again to Benevity to have a platform that we can all use in times like this. So not only are we using this throughout the year, but a very convenient way when something comes up. It's invaluable for us to get a campaign out to the masses, to our employees quickly in an efficient way where employees know exactly where they should be going and heading for this type of information. And our John Deere Foundation launched a COVID-19 disaster relief campaign to promote employee giving by offering a 2-for-1 match on employee donations. And we decided, again, to, like most people, to focus on what are the immediate needs that our employees, first and foremost, might have, but also the communities in which we all live and work. And so how do we make sure that we're taking care of the basic needs first? And so we did our 2-for-1 campaign that goes through the end of April, specifically focused on food banks that we're currently partnering with and our local American Red Cross chapters as well in the home communities. And we've been talking to our employees about not only how important it is to be giving blood, or to be giving funds, but also for American Red Cross, who produces, I think for the nation, like 40%, or who kind of take care of 40% of our blood supply, to be asking people to be where they feel safe and secure to be making blood donations, because we usually would have a blood drive and we've been canceling those, as many of you have probably been canceling other volunteerism as well. Maybe people aren't thinking about the impact that that's having as we cancel blood drives, and we can't buy that product, unfortunately, and that's the only way. So just kind of bringing some heightened awareness to that as well. We've been running that campaign through the US and Canada, and like I said, it ends at the end of April. We've already collected from our employees in the match over $375,000 in just a couple of weeks from that. Similarly to our granting cycle has just happened, where we have made the majority of our grant payments. We've been having discussions with our nonprofits on any needs to repurpose funding to fight COVID-19, and where we've needed to, we've gone back to our board to get approvals for those. But certainly knowing that people's needs today aren't what they might have been when they put the grant request into John Deere. So being flexible and having great conversations, using our what we call citizenship ambassadors to keep the pulse of all the nonprofits in their community and through their leadership, and understanding where the needs are, because this is going to change, right? As we go through this, you know, we might have other nonprofits that have sincere needs that tend to bubble up too as we look at recovery efforts from this. Some things that we've had our employees do, again, it's like, how do we get our volunteerism still to remain through virtual? Certainly having employees being able to sew masks, or even fashion the masks of the non-sew version, which, by the way, is what I will be doing with my kids this weekend, because I'm unfortunately not great at the sewing machine, so I might need to contact Levi's and get a little bit of a tutorial going maybe. But really getting our employees opportunity to do something, because right now employees just want to feel useful too. So we've taken away their active normal volunteerism, and they still want to be giving back, and probably now more than ever. So what we're doing is they're signing up for shifts, and basically our shifts are how many masks are you willing to make, and then based on that we're giving them money in their giving account through Benevity to be able to give to a charity of their choice that's supporting COVID-19. And so really allowing that employee engagement for them to do something, but then yet take those funds through their volunteerism and put them towards causes that they're personally passionate about. And I won't belabor the virtual volunteerism, but anywhere we can, we are also looking for opportunities for our folks to volunteer. We're going to be writing a kind of a white paper next week to send out to employees about virtual volunteerism, giving them a lot of ideas of work that they're doing today, skill-based volunteerism that they could be doing, things they could be doing with their families, other tools and resources that are available to find opportunities even outside of what we call our Benevity system, Power for Good. So expanding on that as well. Let's see. Yeah, we can probably just go to the next slide. I know being last, it's kind of maybe taking a little bit of, yeah, someone already said that. So in interest of time in the discussion. Something that's a little bit more difficult, or I feel from a global company, is really ensuring that we're getting support and employees realize that we care about them everywhere, no matter where the employee is residing. It's easy to get focused on a company that's headquartered in the US on US locations only. And so we wanted to make sure that we're talking to all of our global leaders and in these factories that are also being impacted and our employees who are being impacted. And so you can see just a little bit there of something that we're doing in India. But in Argentina, for instance, our foundation is partnering with Global Communities, which is a US-based nonprofit, but talking to them about how we're changing our existing grant to now focus on technical and logistical support to different neighborhoods and organizations, and that funding getting food and basic needs this crucial time to those most vulnerable in the community. That's something that we're doing in every one of the countries that we're operating in. Something unique in Brazil that we're doing is we've reached out, our operations has reached out even to our dealer network, and we partnered together to purchase COVID-19 quick test kits for Brazil. In facilities like in Catalo and Horizontina, for instance, we're donating the use, and the dealers are helping with this, use of tractors and sprayers to clean public roads, even to combat COVID-19. We've partnered with over 100 local governments to assist with equipment needs for street cleaning and anything else that they might need John Deere equipment to help them in the fight for COVID-19 relief. Employees everywhere are giving cash donations as well, as you can imagine, in support of personal care and food. Our operations is matching those donations outside of what we do in the US for the foundation, but operations is matching those donations as well. In China, interestingly enough, in Wuhan as well, we actually, our John Deere dealer and some of our customers teamed together to use machines to build hospitals and John Deere employees to work. So we were using a few excavators, John Deere excavators. We're using employee personnel from the dealership and from the customers of those dealerships to assist in hospital construction sites. That's one thing that we have been able to do, is reach out again with equipment, with our employees, with our dealership employees. The donations again are coming through. They're enabling buying necessities like mineral water, instant noodles, 10,000 masks for staff that are working to construct and in hospitals. And then again, you'll see here on the screen, it was the work that we were doing with India, preparing dry rations and working with a nonprofit card in India to provide also soaps, hand wash to those in the communities to prevent the spread there, making sure that we're getting those primary health kits and supporting those near our John Deere facilities as well. If you want to go to the next slide. One of the things that I don't remember if it was Levi or Zurich that mentioned, but just this constant and need for communication for our employees, right? We want to make sure that the employees first and foremost know we care about them and their safety. We're doing a lot of things differently at John Deere that we haven't done before. We're giving employees resources on how to work virtually. As an essential organization, all of our production workers are working. So how do we make sure that they know how much we care about the efforts that they're making and that we are protecting them and giving them the resources to do their job in this very essential time for them to be at work. And so if I could give any advice, it would be to keep open communications this whole time. I don't know that you can communicate too much from your leadership in support of the efforts that the employees are making, but also to recognize efforts, to talk about the positive things that are going on, and to have your leaders really be talking authentically about how much they care about the employees and how appreciative they are for the efforts being made right now. This is some things that I just, kind of a combination of stuff. Even John Deere's putting out fun activities for kids. Many of us are multitasking now, and the teacher and the work parent and the cook and the cleaner and everything at once. So here are some fun activities that we can do, but also just talking about the donations that are being made through, we're donating PPE equipment all the time to local hospitals. But first and foremost, we're making sure that we have the right amount of PPE to protect our employees. But once we know that, then we can go ahead and donate, and sharing those stories, and sharing, creating videos. And I know we had mentioned Edelman, and working with them to say, what are the messages right now that our customers want to hear? What are the messages our employees want to hear? How do we make sure that we are getting key, honest, empathetic communications out there? And this was a quote on one of our online websites from an employee that is very thankful for the communications that they're getting. And for those of you in communication, you probably rarely ever get someone to thank you for communication. So we consider that a small success by itself. And then lastly, Seth, it looks like you've changed to the last slide, but just making sure for us, our customers are doing okay, they know we're supporting them, but also sharing that we're all in this together, right? So not just John Deere, but the world. And, where we can, keep a little bit of our good-natured humor, which is part of our brand, but we think that will help also. So I just would end my comments and my overview with thank you again to all of you on the call today, because your work is invaluable during this time. So really appreciate it. And thanks for the opportunity to share what John Deere is doing.
Thank you so much, Kim, and thank you all for sharing your insights. This is truly a power round because we have 3 minutes, so maybe we'll allow 2 of you to take like a 60-second shot at this question, which has really been popping up across the chat function. For nonprofits that are eager to build partnerships around either funding or volunteering at this time, what is your recommendation on both how they engage and what messages they communicate? You all are on the corporate side of these partnerships. From that perspective, what would your quick tips be for them to be thinking about? And we'll go popcorn style, whichever of you pops on this question, go for it. You're all unmuted.
This is Alexis. I'm happy to take a stab at that. I think from a Levi's perspective, we're always open, especially from the employee giving and volunteering side, to establish new relationships with grassroots and national organizations that tap into our employees' interests and that are really responding to the current crisis. So I think from my vantage point, don't hesitate to send an introductory email to me or other corporate partners that you may be interested in to at least initiate a conversation.
Yeah, this is Kim Goodley. I think that's great. And I think platforms like we have with Benevity to have a database of nonprofit partners, but to really reach out if there's a connection strategically, that's great to do like larger programs, but certainly through the employee giving programs, because if the business has like a Dollars for Doers program, so not only will you be able to utilize the resources of the employees, but for us, we have our employees record that time, and it's that $20 per hour in addition. So it's an additional way to not only get the human capital resource volunteering, but also some additional funding.
And then Catherine, a question for you that's come up across the chat function. For people that are interested on either the corporate or nonprofit side in potentially developing a partnership with Benevity, how do they gain more information? Where do they go?
Awesome. Thank you. And I've been trying to message back some of the private questions, but feel free, I'm based here in Chicago. I have a colleague, Melissa Locke, also based here in Chicago. Feel free to reach out to me directly. Visit our website, benevity.com. My email address is kpisco@benevity.com. The great thing is as well, I had one question come across, can nonprofits partner or engage? And we, through our platform, we have almost 2 million nonprofits that we work with, disperse funds to, and engage with. So whether nonprofit or obviously company, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to point you in the direction of more information and answer any specific questions that may come up.
Well, thank you all for your insights, and thanks to our audience for their questions. I just want to end by saying our center seeks to be at the intersection of business strategy and social purpose. We were I mean, really fortunate to have 4 companies, Benevity included in that, that are truly at this intersection doing phenomenal work at a pivotal moment. And what is striking is that if you already have these strategies in place, if you already have purpose, if you're already clear about how you're committed to a higher agenda, you know, you hit a moment like COVID-19 and it just accelerates that purpose. And so, you know, there is the fast crisis we're in at this moment, but I'm grateful to these companies for also being true champions during the slow crisis that both preceded and no doubt will continue well beyond. So thank you all for what you're doing, and let's hope that we can move through this fast crisis and then come back and make sure that we are champions in continuing this work and building equity far into the future. Thank you all, and have a great rest of your days, and be safe and keep washing those hands. Bye.